In the National Agricultural Library collection in Beltsville, Maryland, inside a government box that had been digitized and mostly forgotten, I found a U.S. Department of Agriculture bulletin from 1925. The title was Painting on the Farm. The author was Herbert Paul Holman. I was sitting at a library terminal, scrolling through brittle pages that used to live on real shelves, when one line stopped me cold. Several kinds of whitewash are included. That bulletin was published 101 years ago. You have never heard of it. That is not an accident. Because that plain sentence points to a roof treatment so cheap, so old, and so brutally effective that it makes the modern summer heat racket look obscene. Your roof is not warm, it is a skillet. On a clear afternoon, the U.S. Department of Energy says a conventional dark roof can hit 150 degrees Fahrenheit or more. Under the same sun, a reflective roof can stay more than 50 degrees cooler. 50 degrees, sitting right above your ceiling, right over your bed, right over the room where you pay every month to feel normal. Nobody told you. Not your builder, not your contractor, not the man who sold you 12 years of compressor noise and a service plan. Because once you understand what that old bulletin was quietly preserving, you start asking a very dangerous question. If a $7 bag of mineral powder can stop part of that heat before it enters the house, what exactly have you been paying for all this time? What that document describes is still working today in the same communities where it was always used. The Amish never needed anyone's permission to build what made sense. So here is the promise. By the end of this video, you will understand why one cheap mineral coating can knock a brutal amount of solar load off a roof surface, why the old Amish families never really abandoned it, and how you can test the same physics for $7 to $14 before summer cooks another bill out of you. And yes, this works even if your house was built 50 years ago. You live in a city, you've never done this before, and you don't have land. Stay with me, because what I found in a 1925 federal bulletin uses the same physics the Egyptians and Romans used to push back against lethal heat thousands of years ago. Here is the science. Sun hits a roof in 3 ways that matter to you. First, the surface absorbs radiation. Second, that hot surface re-radiates heat downward into the attic or deck. Third, the trapped heat starts driving indoor temperatures higher, which forces mechanical cooling to chase a problem your roof created for free. The U.S. Department of Energy gives the number nobody should forget. A conventional dark roof can reach 150 degrees Fahrenheit or more on a sunny summer afternoon. A reflective roof can stay more than 50 degrees Fahrenheit cooler under the same conditions. Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory adds the next part. Raising roof solar reflectance from about 20% to about 55% can reduce cooling energy use by 20%. Think about your roof like a cast iron skillet. Paint the skillet black and leave it in the yard. It sears your hand. Coat it white, and it still gets hot, but it stops swallowing sunlight so greedily. In roofing, the equivalent performance metric is solar reflectance. A light mineral roof can throw back 0.60 to 0.90 units of sunlight for every 1 unit that hits it. Dark asphalt usually throws back only 0.05 to 0.20. That is the real coefficient here. Your roof either rejects the sun or stores it. The National Park Service adds something old builders understood by habit. Lime wash is breathable, antiseptic, antifungal, and when painted on roofs, it can reduce inside temperatures by up to 10 degrees. That gap represents a massive market in shingles, compressors, service calls, and summer electricity every year, and that is why you have never heard of this. I saw the living version of it in Holmes County, Ohio, just outside Mount Hope, on a day that felt like wet cloth over the face. The road shimmered, the barn roofs flashed white in the sun. I walked toward a low outbuilding near the garden and waited for the usual sound. No condenser, no fan cage, no cycling hum. Just insects, wagon wheels in the distance, and the soft scrape of a broom against wood. Inside, the air felt calmer than it should have. Not cold, just unpanicked. My palm hit the south side of the roof overhang first, then the chalky coated panel beside it. The difference was immediate. Eli looked at me and smiled like I had finally noticed something obvious. He said, "When the glare dulls, we freshen it." That was it. No sales pitch, no brand. His family had done some version of that for 4 generations, and the habit came down through people whose building knowledge moved from Canton Bern through Alsace and the Palatinate before it ever reached Ohio. A 1925 U.S. Department of Agriculture Farmer's Bulletin, painting on the farm, still gave full directions for several kinds of whitewash. The knowledge never disappeared. It was filed away. It was waiting. Go back farther and the pattern gets unsettling. In ancient Egypt, builders used light plastered exterior surfaces and flat roofs to throw off punishing desert sun. In Roman settlements, lime plaster covered masonry and reflected light while letting walls breathe after rain. In medieval German farming regions, dwellings and barns were re-limed because the coating was cheap, bright, and durable enough to survive hard seasons. 3 worlds. Different languages, different empires, same answer. The Amish didn't read this in a textbook. They figured it out the way all real knowledge gets discovered, by paying attention to what the earth was already doing. A pale mineral surface takes less punishment. A breathable wall or roof dries cleaner. A house that starts cooler asks less from everything below it. Every civilization that mastered extreme heat arrived at the same answer independently. The Amish never forgot. They carried it from Canton Bern and the Palatinate to Pennsylvania and Ohio more than 250 years ago, and kept building it because it worked, and because they never needed anyone's permission to do what made sense. Now comes the part that should make you angry. The origin point sits in 1902. Willis Carrier solved a humidity problem for a Brooklyn printing plant. By 1915, Carrier Engineering Corporation existed to manufacture and sell mechanical control of indoor air. That invention mattered. It also created a market that only grew when buildings arrived already heat-loaded from above. By 1903, Henry Reynolds had also helped launch the asphalt shingle era. By the 1920s, Bird and Son were mass-producing strip shingles. Passive roof cooling threatened material turnover, electrical demand, and equipment sales in a market already headed toward millions. The mechanism was not one dramatic midnight order. It was standardization. In 1923, the American Society of Heating and Ventilating Engineers, working with the U.S. Public Health Service, formalized the modern comfort zone. In 1925, the USDA still printed a sentence in Farmer's Bulletin 1452 that matters more than it looks. Full directions for making and applying several kinds of whitewash are included. One path went into engineering tables, trade training, and code culture. The other got filed under farm maintenance. That is how a working roof technology gets buried in plain sight. Then the Allies arrived. Carrier Engineering Corporation sold the machine. Paramount's Rivoli Theater helped sell the feeling in 1925 when comfort cooling became public theater, not just industrial control. The Federal Housing Administration helped standardize repeatable post-war housing products and fast construction routines. The roofing trade sold asphalt by the square. The cooling trade sold relief by the ton. Each system fed the next. Hotter roofs, bigger loads, more equipment, an entire field of knowledge disappeared from architecture schools, building habits, and homeowner memory. Not because it failed, because it wasn't profitable. And the modern continuation is not subtle. An Asphalt Roofing Manufacturers Association Board document from 2019 listed a specific budget line called Cool Roof Activity, with a $40,000 annual budget and warnings that California regulatory fights could drive it higher. Floodlight News later documented how dark roof interests and allied groups fought cool roof rules in Denver in 2015 and Baltimore in 2022, arguing for choice, while protecting market share for darker, more profitable systems. Not because it failed, because profitable heat is still profitable. The U.S. roofing market was valued at $27.46 billion in 2023. Every alternative installed is a shingle sale, a compressor hour, and a service call that never happens. Now, if you already own a house and you're thinking this only applies to people with land, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. You don't need to buy equipment, you need a weekend. Here is the exact low-cost test. Start small, do one hot roof section first, not the whole house. A shed roof, porch roof, coop roof, sun-beaten addition roof, or older metal section is perfect. If the surface is standing seam metal, corrugated steel, masonry, concrete, or an aging-coated low-slope panel, you are in business. Sweep it clean, rinse dust off, let it dry fully, then mix the old mineral wash in a 5-gallon bucket. Pour in 2 gallons of clean water. Sift in 7 to 8 pounds of Type S hydrated lime, slowly so you do not breathe the cloud. Stir with a wood paddle for 3 full minutes. Let it sit 20 minutes. In a separate container, dissolve 8 ounces of plain salt in 1 pint of hot water. Add that, then add 12 ounces of skim milk or 4 ounces of casein powder for adhesion. If the roof is metal and gets hammered by weather, add 6 ounces of raw linseed oil to the final coat only. That gives the surface a little more grip without turning it into plastic. Use a 4-inch masonry brush, a whitewash block brush, or a pump sprayer with a wide nozzle. Work early when the roof surface is between 50 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Start at the ridge. Pull the coat down in strips about 18 inches wide. Overlap each pass by 2 inches. Keep the first coat thin. You are not painting a car. You are laying down mineral crystal. On most surfaces, 1 gallon covers 120 to 150 square feet per coat. Wait 12 to 24 hours. Then apply a second coat. Type S hydrated lime is not optional. Garden lime or dolomitic lime causes poor bonding, gritty runoff, and a weak chalk skin that dies fast. Wear gloves, long sleeves, and eye protection. Keep pets away from the wet roof until it cures. And do not test this on brittle asphalt shingles you are trying to preserve for another decade. Use it on compatible surfaces first. Learn the behavior, then scale intelligently. On a 95-degree day, a coated roof section can run 18 to 32 degrees Fahrenheit cooler than the same dark surface beside it. And the room below often feels 4 to 10 degrees calmer during peak afternoon heat. You will see the effect fastest under a metal porch, attic room, shop roof, or west-facing addition. The job takes 1 Saturday morning for a small roof and 1 full weekend for 400 to 600 square feet. The mix usually needs attention once every 1 to 3 years, depending on rain, slope, and how hard the sun hits that plane. And now compare honestly. Your central air replacement costs $8,400 to $14,700 to install, around $146 per month to run in hot weather, and lasts 12 to 17 years before it ends up in a landfill. This test costs $12 to $38 total. It lasts 1 to 3 years on an exposed section, longer if you maintain it. Your choice. What most people miss is where summer misery actually begins. It does not begin at the thermostat. It begins at the first dark surface that takes the noon sun and holds it. Insulation helps. Of course it does. But insulation under a broiling roof is like putting an oven mitt under a frying pan and calling the kitchen fixed. The roof still gets viciously hot. The deck still radiates. The attic still stores that charge. Hours later, when the sun is dropping, the house keeps releasing the heat it banked all afternoon. That is why upstairs bedrooms feel worst at exactly the hour you want to sleep. You have felt thermal lag even if you never used the term. Outside air drops. Indoors stays swollen. The roof is still unloading. Dark materials are slow to forgive. A pale mineral coat changes that curve before the heat crosses the first boundary. This is not magic. It is timing. If you can keep the roof surface from peaking so high at 2:30 p.m., the drywall below does not spend the evening bleeding stored heat back into your life. That is why old builders obsessed over shade, color, and air movement before anyone sold comfort by the ton. And no, this is not a replacement for every other sane step. If your attic hatch leaks, seal it. If your soffits are blocked, open them. If your ducts are sprawled across a hot attic, fix that too. Oak Ridge National Laboratory has shown again and again that roof and attic systems behave as a set, not as isolated gadgets. Radiation, convection, and insulation all talk to each other. The cheap mineral coat matters because it attacks the first conversation. Less absorbed radiation means less punishment for every layer beneath it. That is how a humble surface treatment punches above its price. There is another reason the old method matters. It is reversible. You are not signing financing papers. You are not cutting a hole for a machine. You are not binding yourself to a warranty chain, a refrigerant cycle, or a service calendar. You are testing physics on your own property with materials people recognized before radio. If it works on the first section, expand it. If it does not fit your roof type, you have still learned something valuable for almost nothing. That is a very different relationship to a house. You stop behaving like a subscriber. You start behaving like a steward. City people can use this too. In fact, city roofs often need it more. Brick row houses, garages, workshops, porch additions, backyard offices, and flat utility roofs soak up brutal solar gain because they sit in reflected street heat with almost no tree cover. A small white-treated section over the hottest room can matter more than a giant untreated roof over a shaded house in the country. And if you rent, you can still test the principle on a shed, coop, detached shop, doghouse roof, or removable panel above a sun-struck window. Learn the physics where you can control it. Then decide how far to go. The other objection always arrives right here. What about winter? Fair question. A reflective roof can carry a winter heating penalty in some climates. The Department of Energy says that plainly. But summer roof temperatures do not rise by 5 degrees. They rise by 50 and more. In a house with serious cooling pain, that trade often still makes sense on the worst heat-exposed plains, especially where the problem is comfort, not just utility cost. Old builders understood seasonal judgment better than we do. They did not treat every surface the same. They treated each exposure like its own problem. So do the test properly. Use an infrared thermometer if you have one. They cost $18 to $30 now. Take one reading on the untreated section at 1 p.m., another at 3 p.m., and another at 6 p.m. Then do the same on the coated section. Measure the ceiling below if you can reach it. Measure the room air near the hottest wall. Write it down. Data changes people. Once you watch two roof planes live under the same sun and behave like different planets, you stop arguing with the idea. You start wondering why it was hidden under the word whitewash like it was some quaint farmhouse hobby. That is how suppression usually works. Nobody needs to burn the book. They just move it to the back shelf. They change the labels. They let the smart kids study compressors, not surfaces. They let homeowners think improvement always means more machinery, more wiring, more debt, and more branded chemistry. Meanwhile, the old answer sits in a feed store aisle as a plain paper bag of hydrated lime. No app, no financing, no loyalty program. Just a mineral people were using when most of today's manufacturers did not even exist. And once you see that, you notice the pattern everywhere. The expensive system is always presented as adult. The low-tech fix is always framed as rustic, temporary, or unserious. But seriousness is not a compressor. Seriousness is results. Seriousness is a roof that stays cooler, a room that stays calmer, and a family that buys less panic every July. The Amish never had to market the idea because they were not trying to turn it into a subscription. They used it, refreshed it, and moved on, quietly, for decades. One more thing. Lime wash is honest. It fades where weather wins. It tells you when it needs help. Modern systems fail behind panels and invoices. This one announces itself in daylight. You look up, you see the glare soften, you mix another bucket. 40 minutes later, the roof is working again. No dispatcher, no parts delay, no mystery charge. Just maintenance you can understand with your own hands before sunset that day. Everything I've covered across this channel, root cellar airflow design, lime-washed barn walls, gravity-fed water storage, I've put it all in one place, step by step, season by season, room by room, in the order the families actually use it. The link is in the description. But stay here, because what Eli kept doing without fuss is the part nobody's talking about yet. If you're the kind of person who believes that real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect someone else's profit, you already know what to do. Hit subscribe. Not for me, for what comes next. Because this is not a channel. This is a quiet movement of people who have decided they're done being sold what they already own. I want to hear from you. Drop your state, your worst upstairs summer temperature, or the monthly bill that made you finally pay attention in the comments. I read every single one. And your answers decide what we cover next. Next week, I'm going to show you what a 1946 Penn State document reveals about cooling a house before sunset without air conditioning. The technique uses nothing but wet burlap, shade, and night air. And the old extension paper that proves land-grant universities understood this physics generations before the salesman took over. You're not going to want to miss that one.